Military forces worldwide take assault rifles for granted, as they are the pillar of infantry forces. However, during World War II, only bolt-action rifles, light machine guns, and submachine guns existed. No intermediate cartridge or rifle could fill the gap between the powerful rifle cartridge and the smaller pistol round used by submachine guns. It was Hugo Schmeisser, the developer of the MP-18, who came up with a new type of weapon that combined the high rate of fire of a light machine gun, the power of a bolt-action rifle, and the maneuverability of a submachine gun in one single package, the STG-44. Baptized by Hitler as the Sturmgewehr, or Assault Rifle 44, the STG-44 quickly earned its place in military history as the rifle for close-quarters combat and long-range engagements in a new age of warfare. Artillery accounted for more than 60% of casualties during World War I. Next in line was the machine gun. The machine gun had a lethal rate of fire of over 400 to 500 rounds a minute and could obliterate an entire regiment relatively quickly as it approached a defensive line during a charge. Heavy machine guns fired the same cartridges as infantry rifles, but with a faster rate of fire than an entire platoon. Bolt-action rifles were standard issue for soldiers during the conflict. Although effective at long ranges, they were cumbersome for trench warfare and close-quarters engagements. Although soldiers could shoot more than 10 rounds a minute to maintain an elevated volume of fire against the enemy, the rounds rarely landed on the enemy, especially when charging across no man's land, where artillery shells and machine gun fire tore apart entire regiments. Soldiers required a new type of weapon to suppress the enemy, one that was lighter, shorter, and capable of automatic fire. While the United States had John Browning, designer of the Colt M1911 45 caliber pistol, the Browning automatic rifle, or BAR, as well as other firearms, the German Empire had Hugo Schmeisser, developer of the world's first successful submachine gun, the MP-18. Schmeisser concluded that 7.92mm rifles were inadequate for storming trenches and developed a compact automatic weapon that employed 9mm pistol caliber rounds that prioritized maneuverability and recoil at the cost of accuracy and long-range effectiveness. The machine pistol MP-18 weighed 9 pounds and featured a side-mounted snail drum magazine. It became an instant favorite among the stormtroopers trained to seize enemy trenches with overwhelming firepower. The success of the MP-18 paved the way for post-war designs that sought to develop a rifle with an intermediate cartridge between pistol and machine gun rounds. The idea to develop an intermediate round for use with the German military dates back to the last months of World War I. Captain Pederet, a member of the Gewehrprüfungskommission, or the Small Arms Proofing Committee, pointed out that an intermediate round would save powder and brass while allowing troops to carry more ammunition. In addition, Pederet concluded that firefights occurred at distances lower than 600 meters, making Gewehr's cartridge a waste. Although the MP-18 was perfect for close-quarters combat, the captain aimed for a rifle with increased range and firepower for that gap between the 9mm pistol round and the 7.92mm round employed by the machine gun or rifle. The idea was retaken in 1923 when the German army sought to replace the Gewehr 98 bolt-action rifle. To replace the Mauser, the new model had to have a range of at least 400 meters or 440 yards and a 20 or 30 round magazine capacity with a rate of fire of over 450 rounds a minute. In 1934, the Heereswaffenamt, or Army Ordnance Bureau, fully commenced the development of a mid-range cartridge with the specifications mentioned. In 1938, the Wehrmacht issued a contract to C.G. Heinel Waffenfabrik to develop a machine carbine for the new 7.92 by 33mm cartridge that would serve as a submachine gun and squad automatic rifle, or SAW. Once again, Hugo Schmeisser, developer of the MP-18, came up with a groundbreaking design. He set the rifle's barrel and stock in a straight line to reduce recoil, used a gas action that drove the pistol and actuated the bolt, chose a V-sight aft and hooded sight up front, and implemented a pistol grip for the trigger. The result was a new type of rifle design that was all metal except for the buttstock. Accelerated trials followed in 1939 as the Reich prepared to invade Poland, and the latest version would soon be put to the test. The German invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941 accelerated the new rifle program. Despite its innovative blitzkrieg tactics, the German infantry was still equipped with bolt-action rifles, machine guns, and submachine guns, or SMGs, similar to other European armies. When faced with the Soviets, the Heer realized it lacked mass production weapons such as the SVT-40 semi-automatic rifle and the PPSH-41 submachine gun. German troops were overwhelmed by the elevated volume of fire of Red Army squads and issued requests for automatic weapons that could even the odds against the enemy. The MP40 was an excellent SMG, but it was limited to squad leaders, and no design could match the SVT-40. This need grew exponentially in 1942 when the US joined the war. American soldiers were also armed with other automatic rifles, such as the BAR, the M1 Garand, and the M1A1 carbine. While the Heers struggled to mass-produce the so-desired intermediate cartridge rifle, the FG-42 or Paratrooper Rifle 42 was introduced. Although developed specifically for the elite Fallschirmjägers, it paved the way for the Gewehr 43 or Karabiner 43, which allowed the Army to have a competitor against the SVT-40 on the Eastern Front. More importantly, the FG-42 employed the 7.92x33mm Kurz round and was fully automatic, allowing the new rifle design by Hugo Schmeisser to be accepted by the Army under the designation MKB-42. More than 11,000 MKB-42s were tested in early 1943. The weapon was reliable and accurate at ranges of up to 900 feet or 274 meters. Some units at the Eastern Front were even airdropped with the prototypes developed by the companies Walter and Heinel and were satisfied with their performance. Nevertheless, when the Führer became aware of the MKB-42 program, he ordered all work on the weapon to be stopped, because he believed a new rifle cartridge would strain the already saturated munition industry and the Army's logistics. To avoid the program's cancellation, the Heereswaffenamt changed the MKB-42 designation to Maschinenpistole 43 or MP-43 to make Hitler believe it was an upgraded version of the MP-40 SMG. Still, the Führer figured out the deception and demanded to see the rifle in action to see if it was suitable for combat operations. The leader was so impressed by the weapon that he suggested naming it the Sturmgewehr, or assault rifle, coining the term for a new class of weapon the world had never seen. Thus, the first assault rifle was born, and its earliest batches were delivered in late 1943 to Waffen-SS and Heer units stationed at the Eastern Front. Although these first rifles were prototypes, the STG-44 officially began mass production in the first months of 1944 with a standard 30-round magazine. With a rate of fire of over 540 rounds a minute, muzzle velocity of 685 meters per second, and range of 300 to 600 meters, the STG-44 became an instant tactical asset for the German soldiers. The 16-inch barrel allowed for close, medium, and long-range engagements, closing the gap between submachine guns, rifles, and light machine guns. Soldiers could use full auto sprays with minimal recoil or semi-automatic fire for even more accurate shots when fighting Red Army troops employing Mosin-Nagant bolt-action rifles. The STG-44 weighed 11 pounds with its curved magazine and was only 37 inches long, including the barrel, making it the ideal size for those intermediate ranges. New tactics were soon implemented for units armed with STG-44s. Soldiers would use their assault rifles and automatic fire alongside the squad's MG-34 or MG-42 to suppress the enemy, while autos approached with grenades to finish them off. When close-quarters combat was the only option, soldiers with STGs charged forward alongside their squad leader, armed with an MP-40 or stolen Soviet PPSH. The assault rifle versatility was exploited even more, with a wide array of unique attachments. Late in the war, the Heer introduced a unique accessory to bolster the STG's effectiveness at close range. This was the Krummlauf, a curved barrel with a periscope that allowed soldiers to fire around corners without exposing themselves to the enemy. It came in two variants, one meant to be used by the infantry and another for tankers. The curved barrel was delivered in versions with 30, 45, 60, and 90-degree bends. Although effective, the Krummlauf had a very short lifespan. The 30-degree version had a life cycle of no more than 300 rounds. This number plummeted with each increment in angle. For example, the 60-degree version had a life cycle of a few over 200 rounds. The angle produced great stress on the barrel and the round, sometimes resulting in the bullets getting shattered and exiting in fragments with a shotgun effect. Some STGs were also armed with telescopic sights, used with the FG-42 and the Gewehr 43, to maximize the accuracy of soldiers engaging forces at ranges past 200 meters. Another attachment was the Vampyr, or the Zielgerät 1229 infrared aiming device. This unique device consisted of a large scope and a large infrared lamp on the top to pick up the infrared that human eyes could not see in the darkness. It had a range of over 200 meters and was powered by a battery the soldier carried in a transformer backpack that only provided 15 minutes of battery life. When using the Vampire, the soldier had to use his rifle with a conical flash hider to prevent the muzzle flash from blinding him when firing. More than 420,000 STG-44 assault rifles and 822 million rounds were produced by the war's end. Although the rifle bolstered the combat effectiveness of the German soldier, it was never produced in large enough numbers to make a difference against the eventual Allied victory. Still, the first assault rifle ever developed left a big impression on the victors of World War II, leading to detailed evaluations of the STG-44 to create improved designs. Such was the case of the Soviet Automat Kalashnikova, or AK-47, introduced in 1949 to the Red Army. Like the STG-44, the AK also employed an intermediate cartridge and featured a similar gas operation principle and exterior design. It's no coincidence that Hugo Schmeisser, the STG's designer, and several of his team members were captured by the Red Army and forced to work with Kalashnikov after the war. During an interview from 2009 that commemorated Kalashnikov's 90th birthday, he admitted that he might have been helped by Hugo Schmeisser and his team when he designed the iconic Soviet rifle. Another recognizable assault rifle still used today, the M16, developed by Eugene Stoner, was also inspired by the German STG when he came up with the quintessential American assault rifle, first introduced in the 1960s. Curiously enough, the AK-47 and the M16 served alongside the STG-44 during the Cold War. Thousands of captured STGs were used by the East German Army until they were gradually replaced by AKs in the late 60s. Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia also used STG-44s until the 1980s. More importantly, the Sturmgewehr found its way to Vietnam in 1945, when the French military sought to regain control of its former colony. French troops and units of the Foreign Legion were armed with STG-44s to fight the guerrilla. As the war dragged on until the 1970s, the Vietnamese Communist forces were also supplied by the Soviet Union with German assault rifles that remained in service until the American troops withdrew from East Asia. It was not uncommon for American GIs to take STGs as war trophies after defeating the enemy. Pictures and footage from Vietnam allowed the German assault rifle to earn its status as a legendary weapon due to its reliability 20 years after its introduction. Besides Indochina, the STG has also fought in war theaters of the 21st century, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Algeria, and Libya, where it's been used by rebel forces since the Cold War ended. The Sturmgewehr's legacy lives on to this day, with the same name that created a new type of rifle that's become the cornerstone of every single military force worldwide.